Hi everyone, welcome back to Tea of Austerity. In the previous episodes, we talked about the 6 negative traits and also we kind of refreshed the 6 positive traits. Now, knowing the things that we want to measure, I want to put a little boundary on everything. So let's set the scope of the limit or scope of the sphere of knowledge or the environment that we operate in. What do I mean? Let's put some absolute constraint on things as a guidance on where we want and how we want to do things. Now, of course, you probably will know the next lesson, the next episode will be about the relative constraint. But in this one, let's start with the absolute constraint. What does that mean? But before I talk about this, I want to just bring you all the way back because I think this is very philosophical. Let's think about this question. What is free? What is freedom? We hear everyone talk about freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom to pursue happiness. We have freedom, free. Almost everything's free, except everything costs money. But then again, you have, it seems like everything you can think of, everything that can be molded by human perception should be free to be attributed in a way that you want. So say, even though I'm sitting on this chair, if I'm deluded enough, then I can think that I'm actually sitting in an airplane some 30,000 feet above in the air. I mean, I don't think airplane goes that high, but that's the point. The point is, almost everyone wants to have their perception molding the reality into a way that they can comprehend. And while I think for the most part that's delusion, I do think that there's benefit to it. What do I mean? We know medically you have positive placebo effect. And we also know if you're depressed, your body will respond negatively. You have different degenerative illness. Your body will deteriorate. So the spiritual and the mind element is tightly connected, and it's almost not possible to separate them out. Which in a later episode, we will talk about the relative constraint, about how you can bend those rules. But for this one, we don't really care about that. And what do I mean? I think most people don't realize how much we're actually constrained by the physical realm, or maybe even spiritual realm, that's even better, by the physical realm, that we just stop asking why. For example, we can have Democrats debating with Republicans about taxes, about school, about maybe Second Amendments, about maybe we want to give more money to kids, we want to give less money to elderly, or whatever. But will they ever argue about, let's say, we want to change gravity? We want to change how the sun rises and how the sun sets? No, that's absurd. How can gravity change based on your perception of what an ideal society is? The answer is it doesn't. And so you have to know that. Because I think there's more to life that's governed not by our perception, but by the physical reality. Of course, you can be completely deluded and think that, I think therefore I am, everyone else just NPC is just puff. And to that I would say that it's not very helpful. Because while you can delude yourself thinking many things, you likely won't live a very pleasant life in a way that maximize leveraging the physical property of the world. You probably want to think about something that doesn't exist and which will never exist in your lifetime. And against some other people that wanted to use the physical property, building machinery, building businesses, and you eventually slave away for them. Is that a good thing to have? Hey, if you really want to delude yourself to think in a term that, hey, slave is free, poverty is freedom, hey, maybe that's the best. Maybe you should do that. Maybe that's the real best option. But I think for most audiences that will watch this video, we agree that we want to actually live in the physical world and leverage the physical property as much as we can. Of course, there's always things that we do not know. But for the most of the problem that we encounter, we do not need to know those esoteric knowledge. Let's just see what we can do with the tool that we're given. And if you can do that well, hey, you know what? I think you'll be set for life. But that's beside the point. Let's bring it back down to the absolute limit that we have. So I mentioned the gravity doesn't change. The sunrise, sunset doesn't change. The air that we breathe in, it doesn't change. You just cannot stop breathing air. And there's no point. I don't see why anyone wants to prove me wrong on this. It just doesn't happen. We all die. At least for anyone other than some religious figures, we all die. And I think for people who are watching this, you're not those religious figures, so you will die as well. Is the pursuit of immortality worth it? No. It's just not. I don't know what to tell you. It's just not. You can find some esoteric Buddhist monk or some other weird monk somewhere, find a way to like do some of the chi or some meditation. But if you think you can reach immortality, I have to say that just keep doing what you want to do, because you're not leveraging the physical aspect of the world. Now, is it good to leverage that? Probably not. But you can know that for sure. Is while you may be never able to truly dominate someone's spirit, you can dominate their physical body, right? You can make them poor so they work for you. Maybe you can leave the spiritual part for the spiritual questions, but we are interested in doing things physically. So we talk about the different physical aspect, the limits, right? The electricity, the physical laws, and those things that governs everything. But also think about this. Understand my place, and understand your place. We're all commoners. What does commoners means? That means we're equally subjugated under the law. That's equality for you, okay? Don't get me wrong. We're equally subjugated, so in a sense that we're all equally enslaved to the ruling body, which is never a faceless entity. There's always people, and these people have names. I'm not going to say the latter part. It's not my quote, but just know, I mean, it's okay. Like people over millennium, since the dawn of civilization, everyone works for someone. And it doesn't seem to be, like, you don't have to be really mad about it. It's just now you have this facade that says that you're equal, which you are, equal in a sense that you're equal to any other common people that you came across. But that doesn't mean that you enjoy the same equal status, especially when you desire things that will, let's say, piss off some other people with more power than you. So know that. Is that absolute constraint? Of course it is. Like law, you don't break law. I mean, are you the ruling? I mean, are you at this level in the society that you can just disregard law? Probably not. So for that, some human conventions, human norms, the rules that the society established, they're absolute constraint to you as well. So you have the physical realms and you have the human societal realms. So those are absolute. But you can say, well, I can break some laws. I can some petty theft I can get away with. Sure, but some major ones you probably won't get away with, and I don't see the reason why I want to try that. You can probably, but like, just want you to understand, right? Sometimes if you're very revolutionary thinking, you want to overthrow the system, and you think you want to start from the grassroots and start, doing all this kind of turning the wheel and stirring the pot. And in that place, you just have to understand that there's a limit to your opposition force, and you may be able to survive it, but you may be not. What's a better strategy? Maybe when you start out something bigger and you just decide to become a sellout. No, that works too. Maybe if that's what you want to do. probably won't live a pretty good life overall for the long term. But if that's something short term you want to try, go ahead. Because I think many people have played this game. But if I'm advising my viewers, people who eventually watch this video, I think there's much better way to attain what you want to do instead of playing with fire. So yes, consider human norms and societal forces and culture as an absolute constraint. I work within that. And you can see even smart people like business, right? Business person, they hire accountants. What do? They find loopholes in the law. And what's that? They're not going against the law. They're using the system to their advantage. Just like how me and you manipulates, or the engineers from 200 years ago manipulates the physical realms to do our bidding. We don't create things out of thin air, but we shuffle them and we make something that we can be benefited from. Some other aspect, just a little bit more about your daily habits. For individual, you don't actually have as much freedom as you think you have. What do I mean? You have your health. You have to eat food. You have to sleep. You have to take care of your parents. You have relationship to foster. You have jobs that you have to do. You have bills you have to pay. And overall, there are other things that you want to do to help with your own sanity. Maybe you have other desires that you have to be met, and eventually maybe after you discounted all of that and also some other accidents and maybe some other issues, you probably don't have much left for your own freedom, like the things that you can do freely, the things that you can do with yourself that's unconstrained by some other things I mentioned, right? If you want to fly, of course, it doesn't matter how much time you have. Fly on your own like a Superman, you probably won't be able to do that. But let's say you want to go travel, maybe when you pay off your debt, have some nice savings, and find a cheap travel location, maybe you can do that. So that'll be on your free time. But then again, realize that how many free days do you have a year? The company you work for probably gives you 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, roughly speaking, that's how much you have. So is that absolute constraint? Well, you can sort of say that maybe that's closer to relative, but I said for the sake of argument, let's put that as absolute, because unless you want to just quit your job, quit your societal responsibilities, these things are immutable. You just have to play by the rule. And I think just like a game that everyone enjoys playing, if you play by the rule, everyone's happy, and you're happy too, because hey, maybe one day you will win. So don't flip the table, at least not so soon. What else can we talk about? So those kind of constraints, you can think of them more like they're absolute, but you don't really consider them in your day-to-day operation. I hope, at least, that you don't think about if you want to kill someone on the street, or you want to rob another person, right? For the most part, people don't want to break law. For the most part, people don't want to argue with, people don't want to argue with whether or not the Earth is flat. You're right? It doesn't matter. Even if it is, it doesn't matter. Or if gravity exists, or we're just in an elevator, just constantly descending down in this ether, right? It doesn't matter. But what matters and what really can help you make decision are two things, two absolute constraints. One is time, another one is energy. Time is simple to explain. You have 24 hours. Nobody have more time, nobody have less time. So if you want to live optimally, and when you eliminate most of your daily responsibilities and the things that you must do, your own fixes, let's say, you probably don't have much time at your own disposal to truly help you build a long-term project. And let's give it a try. See how much you want to do. Say you want to learn another language. Can you spare 2 hours a day doing that? And can you multitask with some other things? Say you want to advance in your career, pull some work after dark, and pull everything together. Maybe see some other friends and eat out once in a while. Just put everything together and see. And you will quickly realize that not just that you don't have enough time to execute the things you want to execute, you also don't have enough energy. Because energy is, there is a conservation of energy. So energy in, energy out. And more broadly speaking, we're mutating the physics here. Energy in term applied to individual, that not just mean that the food that you ate, right? The calories in, obviously, but also you have to consider that your attention, your ambition, your desire, your will, your fortitude, like these are all part of energy. When you overexert in one area, you may not be able to keep up on the other area. Say you want to quit alcohol, and I encourage everyone to do so. Maybe something happens that you just lose your, when your work gets too stressful, you will just say, hey, let's have one more drink, even though you don't want it. But your willpower, just like all the energy, is, it's bundled together. And when you overuse your willpower, overuse your energy, everything will be suppressed. And when it's suppressed hard enough, you probably will break your standards and break your principle. So be careful, really, think about this. If you want to really uphold your principle, leave some room for energy, reserve some energy. Don't push yourself to the absolute limit, because what's going to happen is, well, you're going to break things. But maybe you want to do that, but then just understand that when things break, you probably don't have any control over what gets broken, and you have to eat the consequence. Now, when you want to pull all-nighters and drink alcohols, eat junk food, just so you can complete this project, good. And think about how much would that mean to you, and whether or not doing this long term will have other detrimental effect on you. For the most part, I think yes, but again, that's something will guide your decision. So time and also energy. I had to really say a little bit more on the energy part, because for time, I think we all understand that with a limited amount of time, you can only achieve limited amount of things. But with energy, it's the same thing, and this goes back all the way to the delusion we talk about. And I think we can have a nice system to tie in everything. So say you have a grand delusion that you want to move a mountain. Now, what would be a terrible way to do it? A terrible way to do it is you look up some ancient texts, and you want to learn about the art of telepathy. So not only do you spend the next 20 decades wasting your life digging through things that nobody have ever done, but you also be practicing or doing all sorts of weird shit, and it will either wreck your body and wreck your mentality, lose all your friends and family, and guess what? At the end of the day, can you really use your mind to lift the mountain? No. And you just have to be realistic about it, because your mental energy is like this small. I mean, just exaggeration. The mountain is like, it's like that much. Like, you're not gonna move it. I mean, I know people who really try to find a way won't believe me, but I think this as an analogy for everyone who really attempts to be too ambitious, to find a way to really reduce the size of their ambition into different packets. Like for example, in terms of moving mountains, while you're not able to move your mountains with your mind, what you can do is you can set up a process. Maybe you can set up a business. A generation will have different offsprings, teach them and pass down your desires. And maybe over time, one by one, they will start moving the rocks. You have your company digging tunnels. You have your descendants building other companies. Maybe eventually you build a city that will raise the mountain, and then in drips and drips and drips, eventually that will accumulate, and you have enough power, enough energy to move the mountain. And that will be a way that you can execute this plan. Not that you cannot move the mountain by your mind, but you have to find a way that is physically possible by your own capabilities. So really think about this. How much are you capable of doing things? And can you reduce the problem into bite-sized chunk that you can carry this under your own, you can carry this with your own power? Because it doesn't do anyone any good if you become over encumbered by your own ambition. and crushed by its heavy burden. And then you just be useless to everyone else. Or even if you're not useless, you live a miserable life. The question is, why? How does it benefit you? Now, hopefully you're not too stubborn and see that if you desire to accomplish your goal, the method is the least important. So understand. Understand that you have limited time and limited energy. And with that, you can only do limited things. And lastly, before I end this video, one of the primary purpose of this whole experiment, this YouTube experiment, is to find a way that you can actually execute a long-term strategy. And this will bring it back every single time, bring it back to time and energy. And how can you maximize your time and maximize your energy? And what is an unsustainable way of doing it and what is a sustainable way of doing it? You have to be realistic. You have to say that you cannot study 10 hours a day after work. You have to say that you have a life that you want to live, and live a poor life is no way. It's not the way to get to where you want it. And that is the same for everything. Weight loss, taking a second career, studying something really hard, start a new business, is everything. Learn the constraint and work within the constraints. And that's what I want to tell you. That's why I put this episode first, the absolute constraint. Because the next episode, we'll talk about the things that you may want to actually bend. And your limit may not be limited to what you think you are. So, yeah, I'll see you next time.